for us. Public skating, yeah, this one's near and dear for me. We typically have hours available on the weekends, evenings, and holidays. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did talk to the City Council back in February, and the numbers I was given by our manager at the time was during the Christmas holiday we had over 1,600 visitors. Non-season pass holders, we're talking about people that just came to the facility to go skating with their family, with their friends, and I think that really is it's kind of a staggering number for me. I didn't realize it was quite that big, but it just shows how popular that facility is for people looking for something to do. The demographics, you'll see little kids as soon as they can put skates on and stand upright. I've seen multi-generation groups skating, so it really does appeal to a broad group of participants. I don't know, just looking through it, I mean, we have birthday parties almost every weekend. in our simple little structure, I mean, it looks like some of the shanties where if you've ever seen lake fishing, that's kind of what the rooms look like. They're not fancy, but I think it just shows you if a kid really wants to have their birthday there and they're willing to be in those kind of conditions, it tells you something, that they're having fun. And that's really what it comes down to, is people want to spend their time and spend their money doing something they enjoy. And public skating is certainly a part of that. The fifth point talks about cost. And for example, I mean, we always try and keep our costs as low as possible. Most users are paying between $2 and $5 per session, but a family of 6 could get a family skate pass for $25. Compare taking that same family of 6 to the movie theater, and you're probably into it for $60 or more, depending on if you do 3D or not. So, and then lastly, like I mentioned, the holidays. You know, that's one of the great things about the ice rink is when there's holidays, whether it's Christmas or spring break, it's a lot of times when we need to have public skating because there's not as much demand. The youth programs are typically on break during holiday, at least for part of it. And so it's a great marriage for us in the community that we can make those times available for people to just go skating. Adult hockey. So this is our program. We have about 160 players. I put this picture in. The scoreboard in the back. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that is the new scoreboard that we were able to acquire last December. We've got different skill levels. It's co-ed. And we do have the U of I and Washington State men's teams. I believe the men's team is actually working with the Lewiston rink right now as far as ice time, but they have worked with us in the past. Assuming we had a full-size sheet, I believe they'd be back with us in the future. But I believe the women's Wazoo team, I know they participate in our co-ed league as a team, and then they've also rented ice time from us as well. You know, I think there's a tendency in this community to discount the value of adult sports, which I think is unfortunate. Because if you think about what motivates these kids to play sports, because I've been thinking about this all day. I'm sure I drive my wife crazy. I'm 46. I still play sports. I'm a big kid at heart. I was trying to think, you know, why did I get into sports? What got me going on it? And the best answer I can come up with is when I was a kid, my dad had a trophy shelf that had a few trophies from when he was a kid playing sports. And he was my hero. And it was part of what motivated me. It was part of what got me excited about it, because I wanted to be like my dad. And so I think it's really important that we do have programs like these. A lot of the parents that are involved, whether they're coaches or just supporters of this rink, they happen to play, but that's certainly not their main motivation. It's still about the kids. And the adult hockey program, our ice times are usually Sunday evenings, late 9 o'clock or later for weeknights, and then some slots on Fridays when there's not a youth tournament. So definitely the lion's share of the prime ice time is reserved for the kids, which is the way we want it to be. But I think it would be unfortunate to think that adult hockey doesn't play an important role in our program. I think that's part of what keeps our program so healthy is the combination of adults and youths playing. I know I was kind of jealous, not to put Mark McGuire on the spot, but his son just graduated. His son was a member of the varsity team. And as the rink was getting ready to shut down, we did just kind of a for fun staff and board members and family members skate. And he got to skate with his son. And I think that's such a cool thing. I think that's really part of why people get so excited, why all of us have been putting our time into it, is it's more than just kids, it's family. And I think that's a very positive thing about what the adult hockey program does for the youth program. I think they complement each other very well. And I think it's a big motivator for why you have so many kids here tonight that are excited about the sport. Because honestly, I mean, when you have to compete against things like video games and all these other choices kids have to participate in something, honestly, how do you get them excited about playing a sport with all these weird rules that don't make any sense and all this weird equipment you got to wear? What gets them excited? I think it's having a parent there that's lacing up your skates and telling you good job and wanting to be a part of it. I think there is a correlation between the two, and I think this is a very good part of our program. Curling is another program it's been a challenge just because of our size, trying to have enough space to get them into the schedule as much as we'd like. And certainly with a larger rink, we believe we'd have some opportunities. We'd be able to have more lanes. Curling is kind of similar to like horseshoes or shuffleboard. You need a certain amount of space to play the game. Right now we're limited to 3 lanes. Most full-size sheet of ice I've seen typically have 4, which would give us the ability just to service more users. So kind of the nuts and bolts. What are we trying to do? Well, we currently have a 50-year lease on the fairgrounds property. We are trying to build a full-size sheet structure, fully enclosed, that meets the needs of our user groups, that is in compliance with all of the city ordinances, will last for a long time, and will allow us to be the community-oriented rink that we've been trying to be. And we believe we can do that. We got some renderings here, and a big thanks has to go out to Mark McGuire's daughter. She works for an architecture firm over in Seattle, and her boss was generous enough to let her do some pro bono work for us. So this is just taking the dimensions of the renderings coming up and making it look more real, more of a 3-dimensional model. A lot of the businesses around town were nice enough to let us incorporate their logos into the image just to give it a more authentic feel. These are real people in the community that appear in the facility. Kind of gives you an idea of the space. We anticipate on the west end of the rink to have a sitting area that would be on the right side of the image. The rental booth would be kind of in the background there. We just think it would, with that dimensions, the size, it would be a good fit. You can kind of see, if you go to the rink now, it's usually pretty crowded. Having a little more space would definitely give the users a little more opportunity for room to skate around. The second rendering, these are actually hockey players from the Moscow varsity team included in the image. Just again, kind of gives you a sense of the scale, kind of what we're trying to do with the space. And then this is just an overhead shot of what we anticipate. A couple things to note. We would anticipate having seating capacity of about 270 people, and that was something we debated quite a bit. You want enough to meet the needs of the users, but you really don't want to build so much that it's just idle space. And we felt like that was a number that would fit within the financial limitations and what the user needs are. So when we do host a tournament for the different age groups, that the families traveling from out of town would have reasonable seating to watch the game. To give you an idea, if you look where the pointer is right now, basically that's where the families huddle at our current rink. There's some bleachers right there. They all kind of cluster together and root for their kids, their team. It's not ideal. We make it work. We're pretty creative. But I think this would do a better job of servicing the needs of our visitors and of our families here with this layout. So how are we getting this done? So this is kind of a combination of what we've done so far and where we want to go going forward. The big thing is we hired Bob Stout Fundraising. Bob's been great to work with. He's definitely given us a lot of ideas, helped us with our communications, and giving us some direction. And so we're really excited that Bob's helping us. We have been able to acquire some assets, the big one being the dasher boards from the Spokane Arena. I have heard the phrase before that this facility we're trying to build is the Taj Mahal. I hope people pay attention to the dasher board acquisition and understand that's certainly not our intention. There's just a cost associated with building this facility, but we're not above being creative in this process. We learned last summer that the Spokane Arena was looking to change out their dasher boards. We worked closely, a couple of our board members, Pete Robichaud and Steve Bush, worked with the members from Spokane Arena, negotiated a very favorable price of $5,000, and we were able to get the dasher boards. We had originally had a line item budget schedule for that particular piece of the project of $195,000. So you don't have to be real good at math to know that there was a pretty significant savings with that acquisition. Currently, those boards, well, I'll save, we got a slide coming up for that. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The scoreboard, I showed you in the slide earlier, that was an acquisition that came from a paddle raise. Mayor Lambert was very helpful with that. That was, I believe, our gala from March or April of 15. And by December 15, we got it installed. And so, again, we've been guilty as an organization of a lot of talk. And to me, the scoreboard was a symbol of a change in how we operate. When we say we're going to do something, we are going to put every effort we can to make it happen. And we were able to get that scoreboard done. And it's going to go nicely in our new facility down the road. We also installed some heaters. Our friends at Grop Electric were wonderful. They worked with us, gave us a great price, and gave us some nice heaters, which I know a lot of the users appreciated later in the spring as they got installed. So how do we, what needs to happen financially to finish this job? We're looking at raising about $2.6 million in donations. Currently, we have $200,000 in cash and $200,000 in pledges, so that would leave about a balance of $2.2 million. We have expectations that we can raise $500,000 in grants. We know that the Coeur d'Alene Rink was successful in securing a pretty sizable grant from the Murdoch Foundation. We have a list of other grant sources besides the two listed, but we do believe that's an attainable number. And then the loans, we have a couple different options. Ideally, we prefer just to do a straight loan, but being a not-for-profit, there's a challenge as far as having the collateral to make that happen. So we'll either have to find a person who's willing to guarantee or entity willing to guarantee the loan, back the note, or we could look at doing a USDA loan. It can be done, it's just a little more costly, so we'll just have to weigh our options and see what works best. But we believe that we can make that happen. I mentioned the dasher boards, so that's actually what they look like. They're in storage right now. We got a lot of help from City North American Moving and Storage. They were generous enough to do most of the work pro bono. About the only thing they got out of it, besides our gratitude, was a advertisement on our dasher boards. And we also have a farm over in Troy, I believe, which is actually holding the Jones Custom Farms. Is holding the dasher boards for us. It's exciting. It's really a big step for us because we pulled the trigger. We actually bought something, but the clock is ticking. The longer that equipment sits in storage, the more likely it could be damaged. And so that's part of our reason for wanting to get going in this process. So this just kind of breaks down some of the cost estimates. The facility itself, I believe it works out to be, it says 31,000 square feet. Kind of breaks it down a little bit in the business plan that we provided. It gives you a more detailed breakdown. So this is kind of a very 10,000-foot view of the project. But really, we're trying to keep this thing as low cost as possible. But the reality is, with any kind of a project, there's just inherent costs associated with construction. So the call to action, and the cat's already out of the bag because it's already been discussed, but we're here tonight to ask for the city to consider making $1 million available to this project. And really for us, it comes down to creating leverage. We have a lot of donors that we have talked to that are very interested in the project. But the donors are in the same position as the city in one respect, is everybody wants to see it happen. Nobody wants to be the one writing a check for something that never comes to fruition. And so we're hoping by working together, by building this partnership, that we can make a physical ice rink appear and not just a fantasy. And I'm not much on fantasies. I'm an accountant by trade. I believe in taking chances and working hard and trying to make something happen, and that's what we're here tonight trying to do. And you know, we talk a lot about Moscow, but you know, this really is a Palouse facility. It's just Moscow happens to be the one that gets to host it. A lot of our families, a lot of our patrons, they're from Pullman, they're from towns surrounding the area, and they enjoy the facility. And I think it's a privilege for us to be able to be the site of it. And I think that's an exciting aspect of this project. And the picture in the middle, and I wish I would have been a part of it at that time. That's one of the original groups when they're trying to get this thing built to begin with. And I think that's really says a lot about this whole project. Is it's very grassroots. It's families. It's just community members that had an idea that they thought they could make happen, and so they went for it. And I like to see myself as the next generation in that process of taking a long shot, because don't be fooled. There's still a lot of work to be done. Even if the city were to agree tonight, this request is 28% of the total project, which means 72% of the project still needs, something has to happen. We do have a small amount of money set in our accounts, but the reality is most of what we need is yet to come, even if the city gets on board. So we're not fooling ourselves. We still have a lot of work to do. But we believe with the things that we've done, we've got the resources and the people in place to make them happen.